Hey, it's Wayne, and you're listening to Bite Size History. And with me today is Sarah, our co-host for the day.
Hey, what's up? Today we'll be talking about Stalin's policies towards religion.
Wasn't he like an absolute conviction in his anti-religious war? He just thought religion was nonsense and stuff, and a way to throw dust in the eyes of people so he can control them. Really, that it was childish to believe something else.
Exactly. But what exactly did he do though? I thought he was born a Christian himself, so he couldn't possibly do something extreme like oppressing people, right?
That's where you're absolutely wrong. In 1925, the League of the Godless, or also known as the League of the Militant Atheists, was formed, and it was tasked to aggressively push an atheist message while simultaneously attacking religious communities and practices in society.
That sounds really horrific. How did they go about enforcing this though?
Are you sure you want to find out more about this?
Yeah, I don't see the harm here.
Well, if you insist. In 1928, the Godless 5-year plan, a vigorous anti-religious campaign involving the closure or confiscation of places of religious worship, was implemented. Worship was restricted to registered congregations, and the 1936 Constitution made pro-religious propaganda a crime. This also gave local cells of anti-religious organization, League of Militant Atheists, new tools to disestablish religion. This resulted in the closure of churches and was stripped of their property, as well as any educational or welfare activities that went beyond simple liturgy. Church bells were melted down into scrap metal for use in the new blast furnaces.
That sounds really cool. Also, wasn't the Nazi invasion in 1941 about to happen?
Yes, by that time, nearly 40,000 Christian churches and 25,000 Muslim mosques had been closed down or converted into schools, cinemas, clubs, warehouses and grain stores, or Muslims of scientific atheism. Museums of scientific atheism. These museums were used as propaganda by Stalin to promote anti-religious sentiments. Initially only 30 of them, within 4 decades, hundreds of them were in place, housed in the country's most significant former monasteries or places of worship. Some of the most famous were in Moscow and St. Petersburg's majestic former Orthodox cathedrals, more accessible to foreign tourists than those in more distant cities. But the museums existed throughout the country and across houses of worship from all religions, including Ukrainian mosques and Siberian Buddhist temples.
I feel like puking just hearing this. I can't imagine living in that era. Hopefully, there were no casualties, right?
Wrong again. Church leaders were imprisoned or even executed on the basis that they were anti-revolutionary, with the few remaining clergy replaced by those deemed to be sympathetic to the regime, rendering the church still more toothless as a possible focal point for dissent or counter-revolution. This was done to the extent that by 1926, the Roman Catholic Church had no bishops left in the Soviet Union, and by 1941, only 2 of the almost 1,200 churches that existed in 1917, mostly in Lithuania, were still active. The Ukrainian Catholic Church, also known as the Uniate, linked with Ukrainian nationalism, was forcibly subordinated in 1946 to the Russian Orthodox Church, and the autocephalous Orthodox churches of Belorussia and Ukraine were suppressed twice, in the late 1920s and again in 1944, and other sects were also persecuted. Fearful of a pan-Islamic movement, the Soviet regime systematically suppressed Islam by force until 1949. The Nazi invasion of the Soviet Union that year led the government to adopt a policy of official toleration of Islam while actively encouraging atheism among Muslims. Thus, as you can see, not necessarily as religious beliefs and practices persisted among the majority of the population, not only in the domestic and private spheres, but also in the scattered public spaces, which were allowed to exist by a state that recognized its failure to eradicate the religion and the political dangers of an unrelenting cultural war. In 1937, a survey of the Soviet population found that 57% self-identified as a religious believer. Evidently, Stalin's central belief that every rational person would, as Miner puts it, naturally discard religious superstitions just as a baby outgrows it rattle, proved misguided.
relief it is to hear that. I cannot imagine how religion could be stamped out just so easily by one dictator.
That's right. There was little impact on people's faith, despite sucking the center out of the Russian Orthodox Church. In some parts of the country, religious practices continued, gently humming away in the background. Though places of worship had theoretically been confiscated and closed, groups were still able to rent them from the government for religious services, paying a larger fee for a more extravagant sex.
I suppose this proves that trying to completely eradicate religion is something that's unachievable, and we should treasure this diversity.
In summary, today, we talked about Stalin's policies towards religions during his rule, and that the results of them showed mixed successes. We have come to the end of today's podcast. Thank you everyone for your time, and stay tuned to the next episode.